Imagine you have $500 you weren't expecting, and you have two problems waiting for it. On one side, a debt quietly charging you interest every single month. On the other side, an empty savings account. No cushion, no backup, nothing between you and the next emergency. $500, two problems. You can only pick one. Most people freeze here, and the ones who don't freeze usually pick wrong. Not because they're bad with money, but because they were given the wrong instruction. They were told to follow the math. And this is one of the rare situations in money where following the math can actually keep you stuck. Let me show you why. Let's start with what the math says because the math isn't wrong. It's just incomplete. Purely by the numbers, the answer looks obvious. If your debt charges 20% interest and your savings account earns almost nothing, then every dollar you put toward that debt is a guaranteed 20% return. Nothing else in personal finance reliably beats that. So the spreadsheet gives a clean verdict. Kill the debt first, always. Every extra dollar goes to the highest interest balance until it's gone. And if humans were spreadsheets, this video would be over. But here's what the math can't see. The math assumes nothing else goes wrong while you're paying off that debt. It assumes a straight line. You throw every dollar at the balance and nothing interrupts you. Real life is not a straight line. The car breaks down. The medical bill arrives. The hours get cut. And when that happens to a person with zero savings, they don't calmly absorb it. They reach for the only tool they have left: more debt. So they spent months aggressively paying down a balance, doing everything right by the math, and then one unexpected expense puts them right back where they started, or worse. And now something else has broken too. Their belief that any of this works, that's the trap the spreadsheet can't warn you about. The mathematically perfect move can leave you emotionally and financially defenseless at the exact moment you can least afford it. So let's talk about what savings actually does in this equation because it's misunderstood. A small savings buffer is not about growth. It earns you almost nothing, and that's fine because that was never its job. Its job is to stand between you and debt when life surprises you. Think about what that means. An emergency fund isn't really a savings tool, it's a debt prevention tool. Every dollar sitting in that buffer is a dollar you won't have to borrow at 20% when the unexpected arrives. Suddenly the picture changes. It's no longer savings versus debt. It's a small amount of savings now so that you don't create much larger debt later. The buffer isn't competing with your debt payoff. It's protecting it. Now here's where the psychology enters, and this is the part almost nobody talks about. There are actually two different debts you're carrying. There's the financial debt, the balance, and the interest. And there's a second one, quieter and heavier. The mental weight of it, the low background stress, the way it sits in your chest at night, the feeling of running while standing still. The math only sees the first debt, but the second one is what makes people give up. And people who give up on a plan don't get the mathematically optimal outcome. They get nothing because they stopped. This is why the strictly correct strategy so often fails in practice. It optimizes the number and ignores the human being who has to actually stick to it for 2 years. So what actually works? Let's build it in order. Step 1 comes before any aggressive debt payoff. Build a small buffer first. Not 6 months of expenses, so that's a different later goal. Just a small starter cushion. Enough that a minor emergency is an inconvenience, not a catastrophe that forces you back into borrowing. This single step quietly removes the main reason debt payoff plans collapse. Step 2. Once that small buffer exists, now you attack the debt. And here you face the second real decision. Which debt first? The math says highest interest rate. Attack the most expensive balance because that saves the most money. This is technically correct, and if you know you'll stay motivated, it's the efficient path. But there's another approach, and research on actual human behavior keeps favoring it. Pay off the smallest balance first, regardless of interest rate. On paper, that's suboptimal. You might pay slightly more over time. But watch what it does psychologically. You eliminate an entire debt quickly. One whole account, gone. And that early visible win produces something the spreadsheet can't measure: momentum. People who see a debt fully disappear are far more likely to keep going. The small win rewires how the whole process feels. From an endless grind into a series of victories. And a plan you actually finish beats a perfect plan you abandon halfway. So the honest answer to highest interest versus smallest balance depends entirely on you. If you're driven by numbers and won't quit, chase the interest rate. If you've started and stopped before, chase the quick win. One is mathematically better, the other is psychologically survivable. And survivable usually wins because finishing is the only version that actually works. Now let's zoom out because there's a bigger reframe hiding underneath all of this. We keep framing it as debt versus savings, like they're enemies fighting over your $500. They're not enemies. They're two layers of the same wall you're building between yourself and financial chaos. The first layer is a small buffer, so surprises don't turn into new debt. The second layer is steady debt payoff, so the old weight actually lifts. You're not choosing between defense and offense. You're building defense first, so your offense doesn't collapse the moment life pushes back. That's the sequence almost nobody teaches. Buffer first, then debt. Not because the math prefers it, but because it's the version a real person can actually complete. So back to that $500. If you have literally nothing set aside, some of it becomes your first small buffer. Not all of it, just enough to breathe. The rest goes to debt. And from that point on, every spare dollar attacks the balance using whichever method keeps you actually doing it. The goal was never to be optimal on a spreadsheet. The goal was to still be standing, still paying, still moving 2 years from now, when the people who chase the perfect strategy have already quit. Being right on paper means nothing if you don't make it to the finish line. And making it to the finish line is a psychological achievement long before it's a mathematical one. If this changed how you see your own debt, subscribe to Mind and Money, because next time we're breaking down renting versus buying, and the real math nobody explains when they tell you renting is throwing money away.